Previously on All Things Unexplained.
We're so focused on that we lose the beauty in what goes on around us. We're too busy arguing with each other to see the monster in Lake Champlain put its head up out of the water and spit water at it. Distracted to see the Bigfoot jumping out from behind the trees. We're too distracted to look up in the sky and see the unidentified flying objects. We're just by other things. And I think as long as we stay distracted as a collective whole, there's not going to be a wide belief in it. But there are those few of us that keep our eyes on the water, our eyes in the woods, and our eyes at stars.
All Things Unexplained. Hosted by Dr. Mounts.
Let's face it, we were always ready to roll without him anyway.
CJ Derringer.
Ain't nobody perfect, right?
And Smitty Neebs.
I've never planned out hardly anything my whole life. I just freeball.
Featuring Cajun Man.
I'm just old nobody, somebody looking for somebody.
All right, welcome everybody to the first Knapp conference on cryptozoology, brought to you by Corn WingCon. I'm so excited to be here. So excited to have these panelists here. My name is Dr. Mounts. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there, Blake. You know, it isn't amazing that how much more you see and notice when you're not looking at your phone, when you're not looking down at that screen. And that came up in our last talk with Becky, that, hey, why do people not see a Bigfoot down there by the street light? They're staring at their phone. They don't even care if it's down there or not. They wouldn't know. We talked to a man involved in one of the most famous UFO encounters of all time, and he put it real well. You know, people are just too busy looking at their phones. Well, that's why they don't see anything. They just don't look up. They don't look away from their phone. But, Blake, I'm real glad you brought up the fossil record. I think that, you know, a lot of people don't realize in cryptozoology, there is, like you said, a fossil record. You brought up the coelacanth. You know, we have discovered the giant squid. Becky, in terms of Bigfoot, we've got Gigantopithecus, which I dare anybody to look at a Gigantopithecus and not, you know, if you saw that, you know, you would say, wow, I've got a Bigfoot-like creature here. We've got dinosaurs. Look at a T-Rex skull and tell me you don't see a dragon or something really scary, at least. And so these things have been around for a long time. Blake, I was real curious. Do you think that it's possible and by the way, I have to say it's fascinating. We know more about the surface of the moon than we do about the bottom of our own ocean. But Blake, do you think the megalodon could still be roaming the seas out there, right? You know, even today?
I wouldn't put it past it. Like I said, we've discovered the giant squid. That was supposed to be something that didn't exist. I mean, we've got all those records of the giant lumps of rotten flesh that were tentacles that washed up in 1896 off the coast of Newfoundland, where, you know, they measured them. Some of those tentacles were 24 feet long, some of them 32 feet long, and some of them longer than that. And I'm like, it's staring you right in the face. Do I need to pick up one of the tentacles and hit you in the head with it? I mean, it's right there. Open your eyes, you know. But I really think that it's a possibility. I think that as long as we look down in that water and we can't see through to the bottom, there's a possibility for anything. My wife actually had an encounter, oddly enough, as a child, near a body of water. That was, she was playing in the water. She had on those goggles. She was a child, you know. We have, when we're children, we don't lose that sense of wonder. You know, the world's still brand new to us, and we're wanting to get out and experience it. So she puts on her goggles, and she dives in the water like most of us would. Well, when she dives in the water, she hits something, and she says, "Ow!" You know, she puts her hand up, and she gets up out of the water, and her dad and family come over to look. When she dived down in the water, she ran into a bull shark. By all accounts, shouldn't probably not have been in there. But she ran into it, and
Not
those
good.
are extremely aggressive sharks. They're known for that buildup of extreme amounts of testosterone. And all she came out of it with was a lump on her head. But she saw it right there. And there was a case in the 1918 shark attacks in a river up near upstate New York where there were a bunch of people killed and bitten in half and limbs lost due to a bull shark that had somehow gotten into a freshwater river. So I don't put it past that we're in the ocean and there's a megalodon. I think that maybe where it is, it may not have come through in as far as the physics are concerned for atmosphere, like near the Marianas Trench, there are things there that live in that ecosystem that haven't come up to our ecosystem because it could hurt them or kill them. So I think that it's very, very possible.
Oh yeah. Right.
And I look at it with a sense of wonder and excitement. It's like, what's there? What's in this lake when I go swimming?
Oh yes.
What's in the woods when I go hiking? What's watching me? Not what am I watching? What's watching me?
Oh, for sure. I think that's just a primordial instinct of man, right? Like going back to caveman days. Hey, I better know what's watching me, or whatever it is might be eating me in a little while. So I think that we've inherited that over thousands of years. And I have to admit, Blake, I'll raise my hand. I basically know the entire script of Jaws, and I was one of those kids that it scared me out of the water. To quote somebody from YouTube, that's the shark's home out there, and I ought to just don't go up in the shark's home. They can have it. And to quote somebody else from Jaws, it's only an island if you look at it from the water. So I'm just okay with a PBR and my feet in the sand. It's all right. I'll be okay. So I'll let the megalodons and the bull sharks and the great whites have their time out there. So Becky, while I was researching for this show, I discovered that there's lake monsters in Idaho. The Bear Lake monster is one I looked up, as a matter of fact, and of course we know it's heavily populated, apparently by Bigfoot type creatures. Yep. I wanted to ask you, Becky, why is Idaho such a hot spot for cryptids?
Because there's less people over here. More room to expand, I guess. I don't know. With the Bigfoot, I always thought if I was a Bigfoot, I'd want to live in Idaho. It's absolutely beautiful, and that's what I tell people.
That's a great reason. I never thought of that. So we've talked a lot tonight about Bigfoots and a Loch Ness monster. So I was real curious from both of you. I would call those A-level cryptozoology creatures. All right, everybody knows about Bigfoot and the Loch Ness monster. But what are some of our favorite B-level cryptids?
Go ahead, Becky. I'm interested. I'm excited to hear what you have to say.
To me, it's dragons are actually one of my higher level interests because I actually have a good friend who sees dragons on a regular basis in the kind of the same way that I see the Bigfoot.
Wow.
And once, I know that this friend of mine does not lie, and he said that he had seen the dragons, and I thought, wow, there is such a thing as dragons. And so once you know that and you keep your mind open, I'm always looking for evidence to that effect. And not that I've seen any, but it's pretty interesting to me. And kind of in the same way, fairies. I had a super amazing interview last year with a lady who has seen and heard fairies. And I got to thinking, man, I wonder how many other beings there are in my area that I'm just not aware of, that I just have not tuned into. And So that has just been really interesting to me. And then the whole thing about aliens, I kind of got off on a sidetrack about aliens once a couple of years ago. I was interviewing a fellow about the Bigfoot, and he mentioned this alien encounter. And then within 3 days, I had interviewed three different men in three different states. They did not know each other, and they were telling me about alien encounters. And about blew my brain. I mean, it was just blowing my brain. So set this aside because it's just too much for my brain to handle. It like frazzled me clear out. But I have noticed as I paid attention at night that there are lights in the sky that are totally unexplainable, and they do seem to act like spaceships. And I don't have those type of answers, but it's fascinating to me to watch. It's like watching. I mean, who needs to watch TV or anything? There's the whole world is fascinating to me.
Oh, that's so true. My son and I went outside the other night, and we watched the International Space Station go over, and we found Jupiter and Mars and Venus, I think. The moon, of course, was out there, and this array of satellites, Starlink, it's an array of satellites that provide internet, apparently, by, who does that? Anyway, we saw the Starlink satellites pass it overhead, and it just made you wonder, wow, what else are we not seeing when we're not out here looking? It's just crazy. So, Blake, what about you? B-level cryptids.
Well, there's just several of those actually. I got to say, I'm a big fan of Becky's answers with the fairies and the dragons, and I really think, like she said, if you keep an open mind, there's no end to you. But I mean, even thinking just locally, here in 1989, there was a creature that was struck by a pickup truck on Sugar Flat Road outside of Lebanon. That's about 30 minutes from Nashville. And for somebody observed what the head was, and they had it on display for many years. Now there's just a hologram where the real head is gone. But it is a blue creature with white hair. It's called the Beast of Sugar Flat Road. So that is very much a yeah. Let me see if I can actually pull a picture up here. I'm gonna see if I can turn. Can you see it?
Whoa. Okay.
Hey.
That is terrifying. It kind of reminds me of a mummy, like the mummy, a cross between a mummy and a zombie.
A little bit, and then we've got our own legends.
Secondary things to us, I'm sure there's someone who thinks they're the primary thing,
Oh yeah, for sure. That was a terrifying creature, Blake. I think if it had a wider range, it would be much higher than a B-level cryptid. That's for sure. That thing was terrifying. For those listening at home and not on the video, it literally looked like a cross between an ancient evil mummy and a zombie ready to attack your brains. It was the Beast of Sugar Loaf Road. Is that what it was called?
Sugar Flat Road. I do like Sugar Loaf Road. That's nice, but no, it was Sugar Flat Road. Yeah.
Sugar Flat Road. That's it. So I want to pose a challenge to both of you, a challenge question here. Now, I know both of you, Becky and Blake, y'all get out and about. You really get out there and dig into your research. What is something that you have learned in the field that you could not find out on the internet?
Well, the first part was that the Bigfoot could swim. And this fellow was telling me about that. And then another gal was saying the unique thing about that is that chimps and gorillas don't swim. They sink. So that to me was interesting because I automatically assumed, of course, a Bigfoot could swim, And then the other part that is fascinating to me is that they speak multiple languages besides their own, including conversing with people in their own native tongue, like English and Shoshone and Bannock and Navajo. And I've had a lot of people say, "Oh, that's hogwash," but there's too many people who've said that, and I've interviewed them. I've looked into their eyes. I've listened to them. I've heard their voice, and I'm telling you that they know what they know, and they've had these conversations, and I believe them.
Wow, just fascinating. That is an incredible answer. Holy cow. Blake, she put the pressure on you. What have you learned in the field that you could not just find out on the internet?
I learned that people the world over have these experiences, and for some reason, they like to tell me about them. So there was an incident that happened. I was about 10 years old. I had written a piece that was published on the Loch Ness Monster. This started for me very early, so as you can, well imagine, I am like Nessie's biggest supporter. If she was to swim up out of the lake right now next to my house, I would go out there and chill out and hang out and maybe throw some food and see if she does any tricks or anything. But I was giving an interview on it, and I was approached by this elderly lady. Now, this lady was walking on a cane, and she had to be in her 70s then, maybe 80s. She came up to me, and she knew my name. I had no idea who she was. She said, "Blake, can I talk to you for a minute?" So I sat down, and she said, "I have to tell you that I really enjoyed your presentation on the Loch Ness Monster. I really, really love your enthusiasm and your belief in it. But I've got to tell you something." And I said, "Okay, well, what's that?" She said, I'm from Canada. I'm from Vancouver." I said, "Okay." She said, "No, we have a creature like that there called Ogopogo. And I have seen it. And I've seen it my entire life. And I think you're just the person to tell the stories about this, because you approach it with the view like I have. You're a child. You believe things are what they are. You have a hope in it. You have a belief in it. And don't let that part of you die, because that's the part that's going to see you through the hardest parts of your life. But I have to tell you, it's not a fairy tale. None of them are fairy tales." And then I told her that I appreciated her seeing me, and I went up to finish my presentation. When I came back, she was gone. I never did find out about her, because I felt it was time, over 20 years later, to share that lady. And if she's out there, which I doubt it, but if anybody out there knows her and was there, please contact me. I would love to know more about it. Love to know more about her and about the family, because she said her whole family had seen it multiple times. So that's what gave me the hope that there's something in Loch Ness, because there's something in Lake Okanagan. There's something there. And this woman has seen it her whole life. So that's something you learn out in the field that you can't find on the internet.
Absolutely. And I love both of your answers. It reminds me, in terms of cryptozoology advancing as a scientific field of study, it's no different than one Jane Goodall. This is credible, documented scientific research in the field, and it deserves respect and it deserves scientific appreciation. And I appreciate both of you for sharing those stories, and I hope you will keep it up. I'd like to do a quick segment here with both of you, and I would just like to get your hot takes. So by hot takes, I mean just quick, gut reaction. Don't hold anything back to each of the cryptids I'm going to bring up. For this first panel, I thought I'd really, get your hot takes on some of the greatest cryptids in history. And just hear, just instantly what comes to mind here. So I think we'll start with Becky. This one's going to be right up your alley. Becky, what is your hot take on probably the greatest North American cryptid, Sasquatch?
My take on it, They are magnificent. They're just amazing. And a lot of people are scared of them, but by golly, I think the more they find out about them, they'll find out that they're not so scary. They just have a different, I don't know, different belief system. They're not human, and people expect them, I guess, to react humanly, and they're not human.
So we've got award-winning author of Fathom about the Loch Ness Monster, Blake Best, joining us again. Blake, I don't know if you heard Becky's answer, but she had a great hot take on Sasquatch. I'd love to get your quick hot take on Sasquatch.
Okay, my hot take on Bigfoot is that well, I don't know if you're aware of it, but there was a teacher that taught evolutionary theory in Tennessee, in Dayton, Tennessee, and they made a movie about it called Inherit the Wind. It was about the evolutionary theory and Scopes, John Scopes. They called it the Scopes monkey trial, and that happened in Tennessee. That's something Tennessee's known for. But even then, I think it's possible. I think that,
Yep.
and this is going to sound crass, I'm sure, we cannot be the smartest things out there to be able to continue to live when other things out here have clearly been here longer. I mean, the Native Americans tell the story about Sasquatch and about these ape men, as they call them. I've heard rough translations of that, and they were here long before the settlers came to America. So, I mean, just even that short amount, something like that can live this long, I take my hat off to it, because it has found a way to live in a world where curiosity seems to be a dying form. Everyone is pretty well content to sit and see in front of their phone and kind of look at the news there, instead of going out and making their own news and going out and seeing the world and seeing what nature has to offer, and seeing what's in their own backyard even. I mean, so I think it's possible. I think that Bigfoot is here to remind us that we are not the smartest things out here, and that we're not the only thing out here. So I think that Bigfoot is here to stay, and I think that Bigfoot is something that needs to be taken seriously, because, as I said before, with the coelacanth and all the other, fossil accounts and records, these legends, mythology, things, and subjects, they all have a basis in reality somewhere. There was something there that gave rise to that legend. There was something that the Native American people saw. There was something out there. And I believe that with my whole heart, that somewhere out there, the Bigfoot, the abominable snowman, the Yeti, whatever you want to call them, they're here, and they're here to stay, and they're here to remind us that they're going to be here long after we're gone.
Right. And I want to piggyback off that, because I'm fascinated to get Becky's hot take on this next cryptid, piggybacking right off of what Blake just said. So I saw an interview one time with the famous naturalist David Attenborough, and they asked him, Mr. Attenborough, what is the most plausible cryptid to you? And his answer was none other than the abominable snowman of the Himalayas, the Yeti. To David Attenborough, this was the most plausible cryptid of them all. Becky, you're such a regional expert and Bigfoot in the Idaho region. What's your hot take on the Yeti?
I suspected that they're close cousins to the Bigfoot. That, and there's a couple of other beings that all walk on their feet. They walk like we do. I suspect that they're fairly closely related, and to me, they do seem the most plausible thing. Maybe because I haven't done a ton of research on any of the other ones, but to me, and having spoken to a lot of the Native Americans and hearing some of the old stories, and to me, that is just the most plausible thing. That, of course, there's Bigfoot. Of course, there are.
And part of David Attenborough's take on it was this: that we have these Sherpas, these world-renowned hikers and adventurers who are risking their lives to go, to climb up into elevation. For the longest time, it was not possible for a human to even survive at the top of Mount Everest. Now, without the aid of oxygen tanks, right, or something like that. So you think about it, there was somewhere on Earth that humans literally could not reach for a very long time. And he said to have these tracks out there and these sightings in places that are so dangerous and so extreme and so wild, it just makes no sense that this is a hoax, right? That there's not something legitimate to it. And so that was David Attenborough's take on it. Now, I'd like to ask you both about this next one. I'm really curious what both of you will have to say. But in the late 50s or early 60s, in a small town of Point Pleasant, West Virginia, the residents were besieged by sightings of a large winged humanoid that became known as Mothman. A lot of folks actually believed Mothman was a bad omen, as in 1967, the Silver Bridge collapsed, resulting in the deaths of 46 people. 2 of the victims actually were never found. So again, we kind of have this paranormal, side entry into a cryptid sighting. This seems kind of far removed from Loch Ness and Idaho. Real interested to hear, Blake, what's your hot take on Mothman?
Well, I don't necessarily think it's a bad omen. The same thing could be said for all the times they saw the pteranodon sightings, the winged creatures that were seen in the American Southwest from time to time, going back to the 1800s, and even as recent as the 1980s. Mothman, it could go one of two ways. It could go that they saw something that caused them great fear, and they associated it with the moth because of the wings and everything. There's also a rumor out there that there was a character from the Batman comics and on the television show called Mothman. It's like one of the villains or something. So that could be where that came from. I don't necessarily see it as a bad omen. I see it as, once again, there is more out here than just us and what's in front of us. This what we're living in is a microcosm. What's out there is the macrocosm, and I think it's possible that there is a flying creature out there that is somehow avoided detection and identification. Now, whether it's a giant moth or whether it's something like in that film, The Mothman Prophecies, or anything like that, I don't know. I don't know if seeing it foretells a tragedy. I don't know. I would hope not, but I guess that's one of the downfalls of being, cautiously optimistic despite, the world around me. I don't know. I mean, I think it's possible. I think we should just keep looking to the skies. Look to the skies, look to the woods, look to the water. The answers we seek are all there. It's just a matter of if we're ready to see them or not.
Well said. Well said. Becky, what's your hot take on Mothman?
When you first described that, my first thought was, wow, that sounds like something out of the Marvel comics. So, other than that, I don't know a lot about that. So that I think I'm going to stay with the Marvel comics. So kind of makes you wonder if someone was trying out a new costume to see how it would go over for a scare tactic or something. I don't know. I guess if I was being serious, I would say I need more information. Before I could make some type of form some type of an idea about it.
Right. And Becky, based on your experience with the Native American tribes, it kind of reminds me a little bit of what I've always heard is the Thunderbird legend. Did you ever have any Native Americans tell you about flying cryptids or flying creatures or Thunderbird type of things?
No, that kind of fits into that whole section where they don't want to talk about it. In the tribe nearest me, I actually haven't asked some of the other tribes, and that's something that I'm very curious about. Because like when I ask these guys, they just kind of shut me down. I kind of wonder what the other tribes think. What are your beliefs about the griffin and the dragon and the. Have you seen other things in the sky, and what do you think of them? I don't know.
Right. Good point. And so Becky and Blake, I'm talking award-winning authors, Blake Best, author of Fathom, and his newest book is called Razor's Edge, an origin story of Freddy Krueger, and author of the Bigfoot Lives in Idaho series, Becky Armstrong. There actually is some breaking, I think it's kind of flown under the radar, no pun intended to Mothman, some breaking cryptid news just today. And I would love to get your hot takes on this news and the cryptids that this gets into. We briefly mentioned them earlier, but a lot of people don't think of these as cryptids. But today, breaking news, the 2022 National Defense Authorization Act proposal, this is in front of our federal lawmakers right now, has a provision in it to form a permanent office under the Defense Secretary to investigate government and military encounters with and reports of UFOs. To me, this is stunning news that it has been slipped into next year's National Defense Authorization Act proposal to form a permanent office under the Defense Secretary to investigate this phenomenon, particularly military and government encounters. Does this provide hope for cryptid exploration, for taking other cryptids seriously? Blake, what's your hot take on UFOs and extraterrestrials?
Well, it's my fondest wish that we have a Stargate program. That is that's my fondest wish, because that's exactly what that sounds like. It sounds like Jack O'Neill and Dr. Jackson and Lieutenant Colonel Carter and all my favorites from Stargate SG-1. It sounds like something that is almost one step closer towards us realizing we're not the only things in the universe. By allowing some program like that to exist, it is enforcing the idea that there is a truth out there that we need to know, and this particular department or region is something that is necessary, because that's still a part of our world. This is, whether we like to admit it or not, things like Area 51, things like UFO sightings and the Roswell crash, things like that are part of history. Project Blue Book, the Ken Ross incident, which was kind of scary, because just up the road here in Franklin, Kentucky is just up the road from me, and Lieutenant Felix Moncla, was from Franklin, Kentucky. He was killed in the assumed killed. They never found the wreckage of the plane or anything when he was intercepting a flying saucer over the lake, and it crashed, and they never found him or the flying saucer or his plane. So I think that is something that is long overdue. I think that honestly they probably had something like that in the works since Truman. At least since 47, at least since Roosevelt, FDR. I think that there's been an eye put on that. Now they're finally, the past few years they've released confidential files. The FBI released a bunch of files they had on Kurt Cobain, and all this other stuff, and you keep seeing, all the Kennedy assassination stuff and all that. So I think it's high time, that we all learn the truth. I think that we can be, if we're not ready for it, we can be made ready. We need truth. We need to forget the lies and forget the smoke screens. We need the truth. And I think that having a department and installation like that would be something that could lead us in the right direction.
Oh, absolutely. We should never forget history, right? I'm glad you brought up some of those things, Blake. Is it a coincidence or not? 1947, we have the Roswell incident. And shortly after, just months after, we have the formation of the CIA, and we have the official formation of the Air Force. So it's kind of deja vu if you think about it. That's why it's always good to have a keen recollection of history, to let it inform our future and to recognize what's happening around us. Becky, what's your hot take on UFOs and extraterrestrials? Really interested to hear what a Bigfoot expert thinks about this phenomenon.
I think they already have their own information, and even though it may not fall under the auspices of a certain organization, I believe that they've already been collecting that information for a really long time. In fact, I was told at one point this year that in June that they would be releasing more information that had been declassified about like Area 51, and then I didn't hear anything more about that. But I do know, like, even with the Bigfoot, there was an incident down in Utah at Battle Mountain. There was a huge fire at Battle Mountain, Utah, and there were reports that a Bigfoot got burned and came down to the rescue organizations, the firemen and the ambulance waiting there, and asked for help because it had been burned. And the guy who wrote up the incident that I read, he said that, a whole bunch of government people show up and they put the Bigfoot into an ambulance, and that was the last anyone ever heard about it. And when they tried to follow up on it, they're like, well, that didn't happen. You're not supposed to say anything about it. And so that's why I think, there's a lot more information out there that's just being subverted, and because maybe they don't want people to know. Maybe it scared the snot out of them.
Right.
I don't agree with that. I feel like with more information, you can make better decisions, and it kind of bothers me that they hide things from everyone. But such is the government.
Right. And Becky and Blake, one thing that I've noticed over my delving into the paranormal is there seems to be an association between Bigfoot, Sasquatch encounters and UFO sightings for whatever reason. Becky, do you get the sense, at least in Idaho or elsewhere, that there does seem to be some connection between these unexplainable events?
Sometimes I think there is a connection, and sometimes maybe not. It depends on the story. But I know, like in the state of Idaho, from time to time they'll mention that someone's disappeared, and they don't ever find a body. And I've actually heard some really amazing stories about some of the people who have been taken from Indian tribes, and they live with the Bigfoot for a time and then they return to their tribe. I know there's an awful don't believe that, but I've interviewed some amazing people who told me some pretty amazing stories about it. And from the white people's standpoint, from us looking on the outside in, we're going to see that somebody disappeared and never hear the rest of the story unless you're privy to that information. I've also heard stories about, the connection between the aliens and the Bigfoot, and I don't know enough about that to form a decision. I have not honestly heard. I've only heard one man tell me stories about a connection there, and one testimonial is not enough to form an opinion on. So it's kind of still out there.
We're talking to award-winning authors Blake Best and Becky Armstrong. This is the first Knapp conference, a Corn Wing Con cryptozoology panel. And to close things out tonight, I'd like to ask you both this question. What is your most just half crazy prediction about the next 5 years in cryptozoology. So if we could look out 5 years from now, see all the things that the revelations in cryptozoology, what's your boldest, most half-crazy prediction about something that's going to take place in cryptozoology? Who wants to tackle that first?
I'll go first.
Go ahead, Becky.
I know that they have a bounty out for the Bigfoot in Oklahoma. I don't think that's ever going to get paid, honestly. But I firmly believe that the people who have had experiences with the Bigfoot will continue having some amazing experiences with the Bigfoot. And I honestly believe that will continue and actually pick up pace. It just seems like I'm hearing more and more stories about more and more experiences, and it just seems like they're picking up pace. I'm just hearing about a lot more of them. So I honestly think that that's going to happen. As far as the rest of the cryptozoology world, I don't know. I guess we'll find out. Get some popcorn and wait.
Blake, what do you think?
Well, I really think that I think that, like Becky said, that the Bigfoot thing, it's a lot easier, I think, for people to go out to more of those things to come out, as far as sightings are concerned and all that kind of thing. For that, because every year or so you'll hear something about Loch Ness, but then you won't hear anything for like a year or two, and then all of a sudden it'll be back in there like gangbusters, So I really think that the Bigfoot, they'll probably end up with DNA that they'll be able to conclusively prove there is a missing link between humans and Bigfoot, much like there would have been with the Pangbachi Hand or Piltdown Man or, any of those like that. But as far as the others, people have been seeing, UFOs and aliens for years and years, and I don't think that's going to change. But again, we're limited in this scope by our technology. We can't just all get into a ship and go outside of the Earth's atmosphere and definitively prove that there is life beyond our planet, as far as that goes. But, it's kind of, we're left up to the mercy of technology. But I really think that Bigfoot is going to make some strides. And I'm hoping that a certain aquatic, menace, I've heard it called, makes another couple of appearances to kind of let people know that, no one's forgotten about her and no one's forgotten about Loch Ness, and that beautiful body of water holds an ancient secret. And one day we'll be ready to see what the lake has to offer. But right now, only a select few of us are given a glimpse into, that murky water so that we can see what lies beneath.
Blake, tell everybody how they could pick up a copy of Fathom and your other books.
They can pick up my books by going to my website, blakebestauthor.wixsite.com /BlakeBestHorror /books. That's a mouthful, I know. But you can also message me on Facebook. I'm the Freddy Krueger guy. That's what I'm known as. It's what I do. I'm known for Nightmare on Elm Street books and stuff, but I have done stuff on cryptozoology, stuff like Loch Ness Monster, and I've actually been working on a werewolf book as well that I've kind of sat aside so that I could work on more Loch Ness stuff. So they can find me all over, just social media. The books are all there. This is Fathom. That's the book on Loch Ness. It's a horror novel. So if you've got a squeamish stomach, you might want to pass this one up. But if you're not squeamish, you'll enjoy it. And this is on Freddy Krueger. This is Razor's Edge. It's the one that got me inducted into Fall 4 in 2016. I recently reissued and re-released that. So I have that one. And then I've got a nonfiction about number 4 called Behind the Screens. You may have a little bit about that, sort of the making of how the effects were all done. It's some real creepy stuff.
Oh, terrific.
Your body split in half and ladies turning into cockroaches Yeah, it's wild stuff.
I tell you what, I would love to.
That's how you can find me. I'm all over social media.
That's great. I tell you what, would love to get back together with this crew and talk about some of our, cryptids such as vampires, werewolves, lycanthropes, all our classic Halloween cryptids. I would love to get back together if you guys are up for it. Talk about those sometime. Becky, how can everybody check out the Bigfoot Lives series and everything you've got going on?
So the Bigfoot Lives series was written under my other name, Becky Cook. And I'll show you some of the books. This was the first book written, The Bigfoot Lives.
Which I've read, by the way, Becky, and it is terrific.
You can get it on Amazon. You can also get it on my website at bigfootlives.com. The second book is Bigfoot Still Lives. Whoop.
Woohoo!
Might have to hold that back. And then we have Bigfoot Lives Forever. Oh, yeah, here we go.
There it is. Scoot it back just a little, Becky.
Sorry about that.
That's it. Oh, there it is. Bigfoot Lives Forever.
And then the last one that just finished this spring is Bigfoot Lives Everywhere. And it is the El Primo edition. If you can't afford any of them, just get this one. So I went back and I re-interviewed everybody I'd interviewed in the first 3 books and added in a bunch of maps and charts and pictures and recipes.
I remember those.
Kind of random things, we added in some, Bigfoot barbecue.
Some Sasquatch jambalaya.
Fun, but, yeah. The guy who gave me the recipes is a world-class outdoor cook and guide, and he's seen the Bigfoot multiple times. So he just gave us some really great ideas for those people who are out looking for Bigfoot and get sick of eating hot dogs.
Hey, we all have to eat, right? That's terrific, and I can attest that Becky's books are amazing. I would like to thank our listeners tonight, our viewers, those watching on Facebook, those who may be listening to this as a podcast somewhere. Thank you. We couldn't do this without you. We appreciate you. I know that's what myself and Blake and Becky and all of us, that's why we do these things, is for other folks out there, like the folks listening, the folks watching this on Facebook, maybe you're watching on YouTube. Thank you. We appreciate you. I want to thank each of you. I'd like to thank our panelists. You guys have been amazing. Blake Best, you're just such a cool guy, such a cool dude. Award-winning author. I love all the Nightmare on Elm Street stuff. I'm a big fan of Loch Ness, the monster. I also discovered that Nessie brand beer while you're out on the loch could potentially influence your sightings. I've encountered that firsthand, but it really makes the fog turn into lots of stuff. That stuff's strong, let me tell you, over there in the UK. Becky Cook Armstrong, one of the world's tallest women with her own gigantic big feet. We love you. I appreciate you so much. I have to say that I emailed Becky this afternoon, like literally, I don't know, 5 hours ago, and asked her if she could be a part of this cryptozoology panel, the first Knapp conference. And within seconds, I got an email back. Bing, yes, I'm in. Just amazing. I can't thank you so much for that.
Don't have a life.
You've been wonderful. You are both terrific. I also would like to give a big shout out to Mr. Billy Carr, at least Blake and mine's favorite cryptid. He's also a weird cop. So big shout out to Mr. Billy Carr, to Quarren WeenCon for hosting this cryptozoology panel. Mr. Billy put so much work into Quarren WeenCon and to everything he does, his pumpkin carvings, getting all this together, making it happen. Blake, you'll be back at Quarren WeenCon this weekend. When is that?
That is tomorrow. I'm going to be doing a panel on Razor's Edge, and also on I might do a little bit of Fathom in there too. I'm going to have like a live book signing thing. So if you want to grab a copy of the book, you can totally grab one, order one while you're on the Facebook page watching, and I'll sign it for you during the panel. What better way than to do it in person, right? And then Sunday I'll be going over some of my composing stuff, how I record tracks for film, and then I'll have another panel 9/8 Central on Sunday night, recapping Nightmare on Elm Street and Razor's Edge. So.
That's terrific, and I will be back with All Things Unexplained, and also with my own cryptid books, which you can check out at squatchin.com. I'll be here with my co-host, CJ Derringer, and Smitty Neves. We'll be at CornWeekCon Sunday night, 8 p.m. Eastern. I think we have a little bit of scary show countdown lined up, plus maybe even one of our infamous skits coming at you, one of our infamous Halloween skits. So we can't wait. We have a lot of fun with CornWeekCon. It's some of the most fun we have all year long. Becky, I hope you'll check out some more CornWeekCon. You're officially a part of it now, so thank you. I hope everybody will stay curious out there. Put your phones down. Look up to the skies, folks. Look out in the woods. Go for a hike. Go for a drive. Head out to the lake. Take a trip to Scotland. Blake, Becky, any last thoughts for the folks tonight?
Just keep looking and keep your mind open. You might be excited with what you find.
Absolutely. I second Becky's thought. And also, I'd like to add, whatever you do, don't fall asleep.
And don't get a waterbed. All right, I love it. Y'all have a great night. Thank you so much. I appreciate both of you so much. Thank you.
We'll see ya.
Bye, Dr. Mounts. Bye, Becky.
Good night, everybody.
You've been listening to All Things Unexplained. If you liked this podcast, please do give us a 5-star rating and leave us a review. If you would like to hear more All Things Unexplained, be sure to follow us wherever you listen to your podcasts. If you'd like to learn more about our show, you can visit us at www.allthingsunexplained.com. And if you'd like to support our show, please do visit buymeacoffee.com/unexplained. A special thanks to our producer, director, sound mixer, editor, and the man that wears far too many hats. No, seriously, he has a lot of hats, Dr. Tim Mounts. Without you, we couldn't keep the lights on. Thanks for listening to All Things Unexplained.